Bitcoin. You've been hearing a lot about this and the crypto surge and so on. I'm here to inform you that it's a pyramid scheme. That's the way it works. That's the way it was designed. There are a couple of important lessons that you need to learn from an ancient, rather famous Greek philosopher who exposed for us the fatal flaw behind cryptocurrency. All right, and I'm just going to jump right into it. This is a chart from bullionvault.com, not endorsing their website, but just for educational purposes. Looking at this chart, these are the four attributes of money as described by Aristotle. They are as follows: durability, portability, divisibility, and intrinsic value. The Constitution of the United States of America specifies that no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. This is important because gold and silver actually satisfy all the attributes of money as defined by Aristotle, but also nothing but gold or silver coin can be constitutional legal tender. This has never been amended, by the way. Anyway, why do we care about this? Why do we care about durability, portability, divisibility, and intrinsic value? Very simply, if something is not durable, it won't last. You can try to give someone else a pancake as though it were legal tender, and it's just going to mold and rot and become useless in a pretty short while. So you can't store it up. You can't accumulate enough pancakes to purchase something later. How are you going to get enough pancakes to buy a house, right? That does not make sense. It has to be portable. Pancakes might be arguably portable, but say something like a cow or land is probably less portable. And so it has to be something you can actually take with you to a marketplace and exchange, so where you can actually buy the product that you intend to purchase. It has to be divisible because items are of varying value. You have to be able to, purchase kind of like a pizza. You could buy half of a pizza. Using livestock as a currency wouldn't work because you can't divide the thing and have it retain its value. And it also has to have intrinsic value. The article that you're trying to give someone else can't just have value just because you said so. And this right here might be the most important aspect because our Federal Reserve notes are, by definition, a counterfeit currency according to the United States Constitution, but also they do not have any intrinsic value whatsoever. They're just pieces of cloth, really. People call it paper money, but it's printed on a cloth. Minor technicality. No one is going to build a fort out of these things or make car tires out of them or anything legitimately useful to society. If you're on a desert island and a helicopter dumps you a big crate full of these things, they're going to be no good except possibly as fire fuel. So intrinsic value means that every human being will recognize, and not as a pyramid scheme, not just as a say so, not as a fiat. That's what fiat means. Fiat just means we said so. Just trust us. Trust me, bro. That's what fiat currency is. Fiat currency is the trust me, bro. And according to Aristotle, it's not real money. And Aristotle was a pretty smart guy. I don't think we've had very many people in modern times who were very much smarter than him. And so to dismiss this value as though it were just a nothing burger seems misguided. And I grant that cryptocurrencies have been touted, they've been advanced, they've been boasted of with respect to, you can divide them easily. And that's true. You can mathematically subdivide these things because they're just numbers stored in a computer somewhere. They're portable in the sense that you just need to remember your password and have your device, your internet, your network connected device, electronic device that you can fit in your pocket and take with you wherever to go and pay people from your own crypto wallet and so on. It's durable it's as durable as the network and your e-access device and your memory of your password is durable. And so it's convenient for all of those reasons. People have also argued that it's decentralized. However, this is actually not true in a very important sense that I'll get into in just a little bit. But another feature of cryptocurrency is the privacy or anonymity. That is, you can make a purchase and in theory, no one's supposed to know who is conducting this transaction, even though your account and its balance and all the transactions to and from it are actually publicly visible and recorded on the public ledger. In theory, no one's supposed to know who each account belongs to, and they could only find that out by deduction or if you were to go announce it and so on. And so it's anonymous and private in theory, even though it's the transactions are all public. And of course, this creates lots of potential for money laundering, which is why people who are in the money laundering business love crypto, because in theory, that means they can conduct all these transactions, and nobody knows who they are, in theory. But it's also been touted by many libertarians and anarcho-capitalists like Stefan Molyneux that this also gives you a protection against governments, because governments won't know who's transacting what, and you can conduct business, and it's all fine and decentralized, and it's none of their business. Maybe they don't even get to tax you or whatever. I don't know. Not accusing anyone of tax evasion here, but it can be used for that, right? So it's kind of a touchy area. And admittedly, like if you had gold and silver coins, you could put a serial number on each coin and so on. You could track it that way. But at the same time, like, each of these currencies will have its pros and cons, I guess, if you're interested in privacy, decentralization, etc. And of course, fiat currencies are the opposite of decentralized, because the only organization that is allowed to create such currencies are the non-governmental institution, governmental or non-governmental institutions like the Federal Reserve that just print cloth or paper, cloth money, or paper/cloth money, or stamp these little practically worthless things that don't even contain very much semi-precious metal in them, like our pennies of today. But I'll just go ahead and say, right out of the gate, cryptocurrency catastrophically fails the intrinsic value test. There is no intrinsic value whatsoever to a number written into a computer, stored on a digital device, even if it's backed up, which the ledger is, across the entire blockchain network, which is the technology that powers all the bona fide cryptocurrencies are backed by a blockchain, which is a cryptographic algorithm where you have to do some computing, basically, that's mathematically and numerically very hard to do. And that basically proves, it cryptographically verifies that your balances are what they say they are. And in theory, this is great because the financial services sector in the United States and in the worldwide market has grown from even just, a fraction of a percent worldwide to like this enormous bloated thing to where it's threatening to eclipse a very large portion of our GDP. And of course, we shouldn't be paying people boatloads of money just to move money. You shouldn't have, imagine you're loading up all these golden doubloons onto this galleon that, Cortez or whoever is taking from the Americas, shipping it back to Spain. And the merchant whose vessel you've commissioned to ship this stuff says, okay, I got a 25% cut. Oof, that is steep. That is steep, isn't it? It in reality doesn't cost anywhere near that much to conduct financial transactions of any realistic size. You should not be paying your bankers copious amounts of money, and yet historically that's what we've done. We've paid the managers of money boatloads of money just because they're moving tons of money. But that's still a non sequitur. It's like if it costs you 25 cents in electricity and internet connection fees to do a wire transfer of however many $1 million, and somebody's like, I get a 3% cut, we're going to 1%, whatever. It's like, that's pretty steep, man. That's pretty steep, right? And so this is one of the arguing points to say crypto is better because it's decentralized. You don't have to rely on a central bank or fiat currency system. And in order to verify the transaction, all you have to do is you have to pay the miners. And the miners are the people who, the cryptocurrency miners are the ones who have the computing hardware that go and do all that hard number crunching for you to cryptographically verify that this transaction is authentic, and they record it onto the blockchain using what are called hashing algorithms and so on. But basically, that's sweet because you can verify to the rest of the world that yes, this was a genuine transaction, and the only way they could question that is by is really if they could have a reasonable suspicion that your entire network is compromised, which would require something called like a 51% attack, which means somebody has commandeered, a majority of the compute power across the entire network and used that to falsify an entry, which could then be detected and so on, right? But I'm just going to warn you that there are these several fatal flaws with cryptocurrency, and it's not going to be a viable currency moving well into the future for the following reasons. One, again, yes, it has no intrinsic value. You cannot eat crypto. You can't eat gold either, but you can melt down gold and you can turn it into, superconductor leads on computer chips. You can use silver in pharmaceuticals. You can use it's very valuable for photography equipment and so on. Like these and for chemistry and all these things. Like these are industrially worthwhile things, and they are precious. They are rare, right? And that is those are among the things that give them that intrinsic value, right? And that intrinsic value means that nobody can just go in and just come up with a whole bunch of it out of thin air. Like if your currency were pancakes, then one of the first things I'd probably do is just go to the supermarket and buy up a whole bunch of flour and say, I'm going to make a ton of pancakes, right? And that would inflate the currency system, right? Whereas gold and silver, you actually have to mine them out of the ground. And this is a very expensive process. And they're both rare. They're both rare elements. And so you can't just be sitting on a giant heap of them, by happenstance usually. Which is great because gold and silver actually have an inherent decentralization aspect baked into them. And while under a government such as the United States, you would have to get that minted into a coin in order to be recognized as having the value of the currency, it nonetheless materially preserves the exact same intrinsic value, whether it is formed into the shape of a coin or bullion or whatever. And so gold and silver passes this intrinsic value test. Gold and silver both pass all of these tests. Whereas cryptocurrency does not. Nobody in his right mind should pay you because he really, really wants to have that cryptographic hash stored on his computer. What's he going to do with it? The only reason it has value is because of the perception of value, which is a circular phenomenon. It is a fiat currency, frankly speaking. It's fiat in that sense. It's valuable because we say so. It is scarce in the sense that it does require work to produce. And this is actually, I said I was going to talk about decentralization. This is another of the key weaknesses of crypto, is that cryptocurrency depends on mining. If you don't have a mining system that actually does the computation to make the whole transaction cryptographically secure, then you don't have a cryptocurrency. You don't have cryptocurrency without the crypto, right? And what makes the cryptography feasible is this. This is a graphics card. Not all cryptocurrencies run on graphics cards or GPUs, but they do all in order to compute the cryptographic hashes that make the algorithm supposedly secure against attacks is silicon. It doesn't have to be silicon, but it has to be a computing device of some kind of sufficient power, of sufficient compute throughput to be able to crunch big numbers, do big factorization problems, which is what they're trying to solve. Big, hairy mathematical formulas that are very difficult to solve and basically require, in many instances, kind of a brute force search algorithm, because that's the only known or fastest algorithm for solving these cryptographic problems, which is why they're hard. And therefore, that's why what they call a proof of work. If you do a certain amount of compute, if you have a problem that, you have like this is an oversimplified caricature, but if you have like a random number generator, it's between 1 and 1 million, and you get no feedback as to whether or not it's right until you actually get the exact right number, then on average, you'd have to guess like 500,000 numbers in order to get the right number, right? And so these graphics cards or other computing hardware are out there just trying to brute force, do a brute force algorithm on these things and on these cryptographic hashes to try to find them, to try to guess the right number, basically. And so in order to, and you can easily, and by the way, the mathematical property here is that there's a mathematical property that says that you can easily verify once you have found a correct solution. So that part's not hard. You can verify that you got the right number, but the finding it takes work. And so virtually all cryptographic algorithms are based on some kind of a proof of work or proof of something substantial that you had to put in effort to be able to find something. And that's how the cryptography aspect of cryptocurrency works in a rather oversimplified nutshell. But without this, the algorithm doesn't exist, and your blockchain, which is the network that stores all of this transactional information, including your account and and how much money you have and so on, and your hashed password to be able to access it, that's stored in this network. And that's how, in theory, they get the decentralized aspect to it. It's because you can go and run this compute on your own server, your own home lab, your own mining rig at home or whatever, and you can mine this stuff and you can get paid some of the part of the transaction fees for people who are using the network to buy and sell and exchange their crypto coins for other things, right? So in theory, that's a great system, but in reality, here's one of the fundamental weaknesses, one of the flaws with respect to decentralization, is that the number of locations on planet Earth where microchips of sufficient computational power are being manufactured to be able to process the cryptographic algorithms that make the cryptocurrencies work are like vanishingly small. It's basically like Taiwan, China, and like a handful of other teeny like remote places, none of which are in the United States, by the way. And so we're actually beholden to the manufacturers of these bleeding edge semiconductors, these microchips, in order to make any of the whole crypto empire work. And so that's actually the opposite of decentralization. So if somebody wanted to earn a lot of money, mining a cryptocurrency, for example, then what you would need access to is the latest generation of microchips, the most efficient computing machines in the entire world. The reason you want them to be efficient is because the algorithms increase their difficulty over time to compensate for the increasing size of the pool of miners who are out there performing this computation. They distribute it among the entire base. So they have to estimate that base so they have to calculate the size of that base correctly based on the number of participants, and then spread out the compute and the reward for each amount of compute proportionately. Which means if you go online, if you go onto eBay and buy a 10-year-old graphics card, and or even a big pile of them, and think that you're going to get rich mining crypto, I'm sorry, that just doesn't work, because it's only economical to do with the latest like 1 or 2 generations of graphics cards, with only the latest 1 or 2 generations of computing hardware. Otherwise, you will just be sucking electricity and not even being paid for your electricity cost. You won't be recovering your investment, your cost for your business if you are trying to mine crypto in that way. And so for these reasons, cryptocurrency mining is actually disproportionately favorable towards countries and areas where you have access to cheap electricity and cheap microchips that are bleeding edge. And there are only a handful of geographic areas on the planet that satisfy that description, and the United States of America is not one of them. In part thanks to tariffs on our own graphics cards, which are designed in the USA, but manufactured overseas, but also due to things like environmental regulations by the EPA against using coal and so on, and making our electricity production more expensive. So basically what that means, if you are in another country where electricity is a lot cheaper and where you can get access to graphics cards and other compute hardware without the tariffs, then you're actually in a miner's paradise. And so, the notion that this is decentralized is just blatantly false. In fact, it's very sensitive. It's highly centralized because it is reliant on the manufacturing of these semiconductors, which are in these very precarious situations in our global geopolitics right now. And this is one of the reasons why, is because there's this enormous amount of value locked up in these crypto empires. And whoever owns the silicon, whoever has access to the greatest compute hardware and the greatest electricity production at the lowest cost, wins the game of crypto. At least on the mining side. Which without the mining, you don't have the system to begin with. Now, there are other proof systems like proof of stake rather than proof of work. The issue with all of those is that they require a proof of work or something else substantial for the cryptography to take, for the cryptographic algorithm to take place. They will always still require cryptography to back them. When a blockchain network transitions over to proof of stake, it's basically just the players who have got a lot of money, a lot of skin in the game, a lot of Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency is being discussed. They already have a lot of it, and then they just prove that they have a lot of it. Right? And then that's, it's not a productive scheme. It's basically just you already leveraged the production to get to where you are, and now you're just throwing it around as clout. Not unlike our social media and news media platforms, frankly. Or Google's PageRank algorithm, but I digress. But in that sense, it kind of becomes a make-believe thing. And you can criticize me all day on that, but if you want to have a talk about the strengths and weaknesses of crypto, feel free to reach out. But I'm not here to sell you anything, frankly. So yeah, for these reasons, cryptocurrency is actually fundamentally not secure and not truly decentralized, because the persistence of cryptocurrencies into the future depends enormously on the state of global geopolitics and production. Production is what it ultimately comes down to. It favors those who produce, and it disfavors those who do not produce, with one exception, which I'll get into in just a moment, which is another scary side of this Bitcoin. So when someone starts a cryptocurrency, basically he'll begin with a fleet of these miners, a pool of miners who are out there performing the cryptographic hashing functions, and it will seed the network with some starting amount of coin distributed among those who are the initial stakeholders, and then it will proceed from there by the various miners basically producing more coin, mining coin. That's why they call it mining. Bitcoin mining, cryptocurrency mining, is because by performing the cryptographic hashing algorithms that make this whole thing work, the miners are basically rewarded in kind with a share of the crypto coin. Basically, you get more of the crypto coin by solving those math problems, right? So you solve math problems, you get paid. Seems like a great deal, right? So hence the amount of this cryptocurrency does get inflated over time. It does have more added, and they mitigate for that. They compensate for that by just making the mining more challenging over time. But miners can also receive a commission from those, which is either a percentage or a flat fee based on transactions performed by people who are participating in the network. So if somebody wants to go and convert some of his US dollars into Bitcoin, then he goes to a marketplace where people buy and sell those assets. And basically the trader, the transaction entity, the marketplace, the trader, he'll take his money to the exchange and pay US dollars and then get a certain amount of Bitcoin in exchange added to his, he's buying it from somebody who's selling. So just like any traded commodity in the stock market, there are people who are looking for a buyer and they say, I want to sell this much. And so that is, and I want to sell it for this much. And so they're looking for a buyer who's willing to buy it at that price and so on. And then that's how the transaction takes place. And so when you buy Bitcoin, you're buying it from somebody who's on the network who's selling it to you, right? And they are willing to accept a currency in exchange for that. And the exchange is the marketplace that takes care of all that. And the exchange, of course, usually takes a fee or commission off of every transaction, just like with the traditional stock market. And so from the perspective of somebody who's trying to start a new cryptocurrency, you would want to, dump a certain amount of this asset into there, and then you would want to go and offer it to people for sale. Because the only way that your digital currency is going to be worth anything, or any fiat currency, in the real world, the only way it's going to be worth anything to anybody else is if they're willing to pay for it, if they're willing to buy it at a certain amount. So you could say, hey, this is how Dogecoin started out, by the way. Elon Musk's coin started out just saying, well, here's this digital thingy. Do you want to buy it? And there were some people who were like, yeah, I want to give you $100 for this many Dogecoin or whatever. I think it started out. Anyways, started out very tiny dollar amount, right? Yeah, Dogecoin today is still worth less than $1. But anyway, it's just this equilibrium thing of what are people willing to pay for this thing, and what they're willing to pay for it. Unfortunately, very often kind of devolves into a question of what do they think it's worth, right? And so, and investors know this, that if they think that something is that they can buy for pennies today is going to be worth dollars tomorrow, or a head full of years into the future, they would regard that as a great investment, right? If you can just put a whole bunch of money in one place and then just have it blow up. People brag and lament about this kind of stuff all the time with cryptocurrencies and any other speculative asset. It's kind of all the same in that regard. They'll have this hindsight is 2020, where they'll say, oh yeah, I really wish I'd hung on to my crypto. Wish I'd hung on to my Bitcoin when I had like 33 of them. That'd be worth millions today, And yeah, that's true. You could get millions of dollars if you'd hung on to your 33 Bitcoins instead of buying a cheeseburger with it back in the day. But how did that happen? Because, and to rational, sane people, this does not make sense. And there are very good reasons why it doesn't make sense. It's because it doesn't. Why should I buy something that has no intrinsic worth only on the promise or the suspicion or the hope that it will give me a lot more money in the future with no additional effort on my part? This is the part of crypto where you're not even doing any work. You're just speculating, just saying, well, I'm going to try to be a good guesser. And I'm going to guess that this coin is going to be worth 10 times as much a year from now or whatever. So I'm just going to go buy that right now. And I think it's a good price to buy. I think it's going to go up, not down, right? And when people sell, then that kind of deflates the market. There's less enthusiasm. There's less stock that's been placed in it. And so those are the downward trends on these traded asset charts. Is when people sell, the value goes down because there's more supply, and therefore the demand goes down. And if the demand goes down, then the price drops, right? So the dream of like practically every crypto investor out there is to just buy up one of these little fledgling coins at a time when they're priced at, say, oh, I don't know, a tenth of a cent or something like that on, 5 cents, right? Buy up your Dogecoin at 5 cents and, early 2021, and then just sit on it until, 2024, early 2025, and you've just multiplied your money by 6 times. Wow, what a great deal. But there's a catch, and that is you have to get good at the timing. Because if somebody wanted to get a whole bunch of money out of something really fast, you'd probably hype it and be like, hey, look, you should go buy this cryptocurrency because it's going to blow up. It's going to do awesome things. A ton of people we're going to buy it, and that'll make you really wealthy. Well, guess what? Every single time they do that, this is something that's called a pump and dump scheme. They will go onto social media and they will go and popularize this particular coin or asset or whatever and say, you should go buy this. You should go buy this. And so if people really trust that, or if they're just like, maybe they don't know, but they're like, oh, I don't know, I'm going to try that out, give it a fair shake or whatever. They're putting some stock in it. They're putting some money into it, which already is inflating the price, by the way. That inflates the price. And that means it's a first come, first serve kind of system. Those who were there first, the squatters, the longtime squatters, are those who profit disproportionately from the latecomers who are just kind of like, if you're watching this in, this very sharp spike, early April of 2021, watching Dogecoin, and you're just like, dude, it's worth 21 cents now. I should have bought this 3 months ago, and if I put $500 into Dogecoin 3 months ago, it would be worth 2,000 now. Man, that's such an enticing prospect. Oh wow, all that sweet money flowing in, right? But the problem is that's a hindsight argument. You don't actually know whether these things are going to go up or go down. And the pump and dump scheme is again, it's like people who just want, they've already bought, they've already invested in this thing. Maybe they're the owner and proprietor of this coin, and they have 1,000 of this coin or 1,000,000 of them or whatever, just sitting there. And with their initial market offering, they're like, oh yeah, a penny a coin. Come buy this coin with me, and we'll both get rich together. That's kind of the promise. That's the enticement. That's their advertisement for their new coin, right? And so these creators of these coins and the early adopters, the early investors who bought it at a really cheap price, are incentivized to go out there and just kind of talk it up, get the hype out there, get it super inflated so that people think it's going to go to the moon and make them all super rich, right? The problem is, how are they going to get rich? The only way they can get rich by doing that is by enticing other people to buy into it, so that at some future point, like at the top of this spike right here, those who have already paid into the system can then cash out. They're like, wow, I bought this when it was a penny, and now it's 60 cents. I just got, 6,000% on my investment, and they cash out. And they bring a big chunk of the market with them. And then that leads to a drop, sometimes even a panic, but that devalues the currency because, and that's the pump and dump scheme. They're just like, hey, come give me money, and you'll get rich too. And it's a pyramid scheme. Frankly, it is a pyramid scheme because the people who are being promised wealth or being tempted with wealth to say, oh, I should buy Dogecoin at 21 cents. They don't know if it's going to go up or down. But there are people who are hinting, trying to give them maybe insider tips or hints or promises that this is going to go up or down. Reality is, nobody knows except the people who are controlling those factors. The people who get to decide really are the people who pull the trigger to buy or sell. And the people who have the biggest stake are the ones who control most of that, right? And so this is exactly what you see with Doge. Oh yeah, we're going to take it to the moon. And then these people, they just, oh look, we've got a whole bunch of gullible groupies in here that have put, millions of dollars into our Ponzi scheme. Now seems like a great time to cash out before they figure out what's up. And that's what they do. That's exactly what they do. They go and cash out a whole bunch. And sometimes they'll put stuff back into it to be like, okay, now that I've made my money, my initial one, it's going to come down again. People are going to be like, oh man, I lost some money on this, right? Oh, but it's going up again. It might go up again. Oh, I better buy right now. Well, it's still low, right? It's just gambling, right? It's gambling, except, the house controls the rules, right? Anyways, pretty much any speculated asset can behave this way, at least in part. But one of the problems with cryptocurrencies is that they really are generated basically out of thin air. And yeah, it does take compute, and for that reason, it's not truly decentralized, like they would have you believe. But what I want us to pay attention to is what happened to all the people who bought Dogecoin when it was, I don't know, 27 cents, 64 cents. That was like, what, a week? A week long, big social media, get the word out. Oh, this is going to the moon. You better go buy it while it's still low, right? And so if somebody buys Dogecoin when it's 55 cents per coin, thinking that it's going to be $1 in 2 weeks, guess what actually happened? Oh, it came crashing back down. It went up below like 30 cents. So here are all these like poor people, typically, who are just like desperate to get rich quick because they have a miserable life situation. They're living from paycheck to paycheck. And maybe they got like $200 that's sitting around, maybe birthday gift or something like that. And they're like, oh, I need to go invest this, right? And so, and what they're told by their peers on social media is, oh, you need to go invest in crypto. And so they go and buy Dogecoin. And then a week or two later, their $200 is worth like $120. You know where that money went? You know, Doge and the whole Department of Government Efficiency says, follow the money. Where does the money go? Well, it goes to the rich people who were early adopters of this, who invested, who were maybe have insider knowledge about who the big players are and when they're going to do this pump and dump stuff, or have a lot of clout, a lot of influence on social media, so that they can get a lot of gullible people enlisted, recruited, saying, "Oh, it's going to go to the moon this time," and then they can generate sufficient enthusiasm to make that into a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so people genuinely believe that this is going to take off and it's going to be awesome and they're going to get rich. But this is why I say cryptocurrency is a rich man's game. Like any speculated asset, right? It's only the rich who can afford to play, because the rich can play the long game. For one, they get a lot more experience trading these things, so they understand the patterns. Most people who participate in cryptocurrency purchases and so on don't even know what cryptocurrency is. They don't even know how this game is played. They might try to gain a little experience and say, oh yeah, I was watching this one guy on YouTube and he had this awesome market advice and stuff. And he thinks this one's really going to take off. So, and I believe him. He provided all these details and stuff. It's like, yeah, that's a pump and dump scheme right there, brother. So that's what they do. And yeah, if you have a lot of money and you can afford to lose, and I've talked to people who are sitting on, $20 billion, and they're like, yeah, I could put 200,000 into crypto. No biggie. You can't do that, most likely, unless you're sitting on 22 million, unless you're sitting on 20 million, right? You just can't do that. And so it's a rich man's game. And the rich man can hold his breath. If there's a dip like right here, let's say he bought it when it was 10 cents. It went all the way up to 60. He's maybe kicking himself that he didn't sell right there. But somebody took those gains. And if he'd sold his too right then it would have been an even steeper crash. And between them, the guys, the rich guys doing the pump and dump would have come away with the spoils, leaving the poor gullible people who just put their life savings, or a good chunk of it, or their next rent payment, into this silly thing that has no intrinsic value. And sorry, they're still poor. They're even poorer than they were, right? But nobody cares about them. Nobody cares about the poor people. Nobody cares about the hundreds of thousands and millions of people who are beguiled and enticed to do these things, because you're just like, well, they're lost, right? It's all's fair, That's what the rich players will tend to say. And of course, to make these pump and dump schemes more effective, they like to point to the story of the small guy, the guy who got lucky, right? He gambled and he won. He's on the, he won the Powerball lottery and he's on the Hall of Fame wall right there and stuff. And to try to entice more gullible people to just dump their money into this thing. And the only reason it goes up is because people are gullible enough to buy it. So anyways, so much for speculated assets. I just wanted to give a little rundown of why this is not a good idea. Again, if you have a ton of money, then you can probably afford to put a percentage of it into some of these cryptocurrencies, and just wait for poor and gullible people to be, prodded by big figures and celebrities on social media platforms and so on to just go and beguile them into saying, "Oh, this is going to go. You need to buy Bitcoin now. You should have bought it a year ago." And that's always the rich people or the other stooges in that pyramid scheme who want to get rich out of your gullibility. They're literally telling you, "Come here and be united to our secret combination. Give us money, and I promise you that you'll get money too, as long as you can recruit enough gullible people to make you rich after you've bought it." But you see, once you buy a cryptocurrency or any of these speculated assets, then you have a vested interest in getting other people, recruiting other people to come and pay your bills for you, to come and make you rich. And they're going to get nothing. And you know it's a pyramid scheme. You know that it's a pyramid scheme. So opt out. Come on. This is insane. So yeah, has no intrinsic value. It is not truly decentralized, contrary to what they've been saying, because the big national players, frankly, with lots and lots of money, win the game every time. And the exchanges win the game every time, too. This is one of the reasons why the exchanges they have some skin in the game to be like, you better come buy this. They want to advertise their product, which is worthless. The only way you're going to get any money out of it is if other gullible poor sacks come and burn through their wallet, miss their next rent payment, because they're gambling. They're desperate. They want quick money. They've been promised quick money. And 9 times out of 10, it just doesn't pan out for them. But it pans out marvelously for the rich people, the insiders, and the early adopters. So, that might be hopefully close to everything you need to know about crypto. I would add, by the way, this durability aspect. It's let me just come back to this chart and we'll wrap up. It's also really not, it's only as durable as the bleeding edge hardware and power supply. So if you can't pay your electricity, sorry, it's not durable. You know, if a foreign country gets some massive load of latest generation's computing chips, I'm sorry, it's actually totally feasible for them to do a 51% attack. You know what? No matter how many people in this country, in your country, buy into it, there's always a possibility that someone else can actually make your money disappear, because you don't actually have it in your wallet. It's stored, it's distributed across other people's computing devices, and if someone amasses enough really high-end computing devices to be able to overwhelm the network, they can lock you out of your money. You say, "Oh, that doesn't exist," right? And it's not going to be as easy to recover as many people would like to tell you. And yeah, is a network portable? Gold is portable. Gold has no strings attached. Crypto has strings attached. And so maybe the only thing it really is divisible. But even there, you're still beholden to the people with the compute, with the money, with the electricity. And it is very much a Ponzi scheme. And I'm not saying this to say that, and of course, you know, people will say, well, the Federal Reserve dollar is fake too. It's also a fiat currency, and it's getting inflated like nothing else. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Both crypto and Federal Reserve banknotes are ultimately doomed. I don't know when exactly they're going to crash and burn, because I'm not an insider. I don't run the Federal Reserve. I don't run Bitcoin. You know, I'm not one of those early adopters who's squatting on a huge pile of that stuff. So I can't tell you. I'm not a huge social media influencer. But now you know, without any doubt, from a perspective of pure math and principle, these things aren't in it for the long haul. They exist to take advantage of you. I'm just going to share one other thing that's pretty concerning here. Where'd this guy go? Oh yeah, so the purported creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, so I understand it, that's a That's really just a pseudonym. He's just hiding behind that. Nobody really knows who he is except maybe himself. Is that supposedly with his seed startup of Bitcoin into this big money laundering race, he's sitting on a stash of these Bitcoins that are worth like $100 billion today. And nobody seems to know who this guy is. I've even heard it from some of the more wealthy investors in Bitcoin that, oh, he's probably dead by now. And I was like, that's just wishful thinking, because and the way that they know it has this much value is because this is like their earliest account on the blockchain, and it's just sitting there and it hasn't moved in a long time, right? Like, okay, well, it hasn't moved in a long time, therefore maybe he's dead or just forgot the password or something. I'm like, guys, wake up to reality. Have some common sense, please. I'm begging you. And the people, I'm just saying, the people who want you to participate in this stuff, they don't have your best interest at heart. They're the wealthy people. They're the members of the pyramid scheme, and they know that. They know that. Even if they don't like consciously put two and two together to realize that they're being played, right? Anyways, so yeah, this $100 billion stockpile could just suddenly up and move someday and cause a big plummet in the market for everybody else and basically just take away $100 billion. Other people just gave it. They just gave it to him because of his promise that he would make them rich through this pyramid scheme. Can you not smell something wrong going on here? And at the end of the day, who's made better off by even all the compute hardware, the electricity and stuff that they're dumping into this? They're doing work, yeah. But what's the product? There isn't one. Other than that you got, some cheaper financial transaction rates than, Lloyd's of London or than the U.S. currency exchangers are willing to do. But the crypto exchanges are still making bank on you guys. So they're incentivizing this. Anyways, I felt impressed to warn you about what cryptocurrency really is. And yeah, it has some nice and appealing theoretical attributes. But there are some real world constraints that make those purported benefits really not sustainable. And yeah, crypto's not the way of the future, guys. It's the way of a dying empire. It's Rome's last gasp. And don't say I didn't warn you if someday this anonymous account suddenly wakes up, suddenly moves $100 billion in Bitcoin, and all you poor guys who thought it was your path to wealth can't even pay your rent next month. So if you're going to invest in something that's actually productive. Invest in something that has intrinsic value. Invest in work. Work on yourself. Improve your skills. Build stuff for real, in real life. That's how you win. That constancy of effort. Not sitting around waiting for other people to make you rich at their own expense. So that's a pyramid scheme, guys. And let me just say this. The future is not super rosy for the Fed dollar. It's fake. It's fiat currency. It's unconstitutional. The Federal Reserve is by definition a counterfeiting agency. So what I would recommend, invest in hard assets that are life-sustaining. Like, get your house paid off. Plant a garden. Learn to cultivate it. Learn to make everything that you consume. Produce everything that you consume. Store up enough grain and beans that you could survive for decades, come what may. You're supposed to stand alone. You're supposed to be self-sufficient and independent. These speculation schemes, they don't make you independent. They're not truly decentralized. If you want to decentralize, buy grain. Anyways, get self-sufficient, guys. Prophets have been warning us for a very long time about this. You can't eat crypto. Fed dollar is super prone to hyperinflation, and it's virtually guaranteed to happen. Unless you're making nanometer scale microchips in your basement, have an abundant source of cheap, and have a giant fusion reactor for producing abundant cheap electricity, I don't think you can win that game. Even if you did have all that, who would buy it from you? Probably mainly the people who are just looking to get rich quick at the expense of the poor. Anyways, a little bit about pyramid schemes and money laundering and preparedness. I'll go check out my next video about vote laundering. Till next time.